Good evening, everyone. We are back. I believe this is around our eighth week of our 12-week summer series based on the book What Happened to You with our phenomenal and amazing authors, Oprah Winfrey and Dr. Bruce Perry. And of course, this is the book that these amazing authors enlighten the minds of our readers that often ask the question, what's wrong with you? And now, because of their phenomenal work, the question now has become, what happened to you? As always, and every week, we want to salute the CEO of TDR Brands International, Tierra Destiny Reed, for her vision of When Women Heal. And of course, this is a safe place where women come and they're able to connect and they heal and they grow and they become so empowered. And for those of you that don't know me, I am Dr. Glenise Harris Wilson, media host for When Women Heal. I am the associate professional counselor, pastoral counselor, and professional coach and founder of Living Connected LLC. We want to invite you on behalf of Tierra to join the Facebook group and join the When Women Heal community by visiting Facebook and going to the When Women Heal group. Also, we invite you to visit our website, the When Women Heal website at whenwomenheal.com. So today we are so excited uh, to introduce our guest. And I tell you, her bio is just simply amazing. We were talking before we came on live, and I said to her, when I read the bio, uh, she hasn't been through anything. I mean, to look at all of the amazing things that she's done. One of the other things that I said was, she's too young. She hasn't done all these things. It's just no way she's done this much phenomenal work in this short of a lifetime. But guys, she has an amazing story. I'm sure we are all waiting to hear. So let me welcome Caline Newton. I am so glad to have you. Such a beautiful soul. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you so much, Dr. Glennis. I am so excited to be here. Yes, I am very young, and it seems as if I haven't been through much. However, there is a story behind this bright smile.
There's a story behind the beauty, right?
Yes, there is.
All right, so before we really get into the nuts and bolts of all of this, I want to remind our audience that we want to place emphasis on the book, What Happened to You, because in this amazing book, Dr. Perry and Oprah Winfrey, they give us a sense of how to gain personal self-worth and ultimately calibrate and redefine, reconnect to your circumstances and situations and relationships by reshaping your life, right? Because when we take a, and you have to do this from an intellectual, a cognitive space, because you take your images and you take your perception and you take your thoughts and you start to try to shape all of these things that have happened to you to make sense of the world in which you live, the world where you came from, and why you do the things that you do now. And so looking at all of that from and bringing that in, right? I want to ask you the question, Kayleen, listening week after week to our broadcasts, our Facebook lives, and all of the amazing women that we've had that are now just conquerors. When you heard the title, when you think about this book, What Happened to You, how do you relate to that?
What happened to you when I hear that title? I see that as a glimmer of hope. And the reason why I say that is because I look at the title through the lenses of my experiences. And so I don't see it as something that's negative. I see it as being able to authentically take all of me, what has happened to me, what is going to happen to me, and actually live out my life's purpose. So that's what I think about when I hear that that the name of that book, and I think it is so inspiring. It's very it's very targeted because you have to dig deep in order to really say to yourself and look yourself in the mirror and have a mirror moment and say, this happened to me. Now what? What can I do with the pieces of what has happened to me as I move through my life?
So when we start to kind of peel back and we kind of start to dissect within Caline, as we go through those layers, what do we pull out that actually happened to Caline?
So as I peel back the layers, I want to take you back to a time that it was a very unrecognizable year for me. And that was 1996. And the month was October. And it was 5 days after my 21st birthday. And when you talk about peeling back the layers, where I found myself was flat on my back, unable to walk. I was paralyzed without a moment's notice, without doctors understanding why, without being able to only be kept comfortable. Because at that time, my mom didn't have the resources for anything else. And so it was a, a culmination of 70 days of paralysis, literally just thinking that I would lose my mind. I had just turned 21 and I thought that it was time for me to now soar, to take on life. I had just graduated from college, top of my class, and to be in that position a mere 4 months later, it was just thinking about it and just telling you about it takes me back there. I was hopeless. I was helpless. I was at a point of my life where I told God just to take me,
So,
literally.
so while your friends and people you went to school with at 21, they're entering into the adult world of all of the glamour of becoming an adult, just finished college, walking into their careers, walking out of one door of a milestone into looking into their building their years of their life for success, right? But you in turn walk out of college and you enter 21 and you face a traumatic health issue,
Yes,
not being able to see your way out. Very young, had not experienced anything, but yet I walk into this bed of basically affliction,
yes.
right? So when you look at that today, and like you said, your mind goes back, give me three words that come to your mind.
You want me to give you 3 words of in that moment back
Yes,
in
in
time?
that moment, right?
3 words. 3 words. As I said, I wanted God to take me. So life meant nothing to me at that point. So I, one word, it was hopeless,
Mhm.
helpless, and I was in a deep depression, a very, very, very deep depression. And the only, the I became, I have always, I was always an outgoing person, but I became very internalized because beyond not being able to walk, the paralysis was from my mouth down, so I could barely talk. And so most of the sounds that came from me were cries and screams of pain because my body was riddled with pain at that time. And so those are the three words that I can say to you that truly reflect where I was at that time.
When you
And
say that you were paralyzed, Colleen, sometimes people say they're paralyzed on the right side, left side, from waist down, from neck down. How much of your body was covered with paralysis?
the thing about it is, it was such a unique experience, even for doctors,
Mhm.
and trying to identify specifically what this thing was that had me. But I literally could do nothing for myself. I was fed every day. In order to go to the bathroom, I was carried by my older brother to the bathroom every time I wanted to. In order to get in bed, I had to be lifted in bed. My entire body felt like cement. So, to talk about it, the only thing or only part of my body that really moved were my lips and my eyes. I was able to blink, but beyond that, I was not able to do anything for myself with my body.
I'm very curious. Did they ever tell you what this was?
So here's the thing. As I said, it was something that was just so out of the norm or out of the textbook of medicine for the doctors that everything was speculative. And so earlier in that year, I was around April of 1996, I was diagnosed with four autoimmune disorders. One being connective tissue disorder, one being rheumatoid arthritis, one being fibromyalgia, and I can't remember what the fourth one was. But the short of it is, all of those autoimmune disorders attacked my body. So it attacked my joints, it attacked my connective tissues, it attacked my muscles. Every part of my muscular skeletal system was attacked, nervous system was attacked. And so, if you recall, I also started with my mom having no resources. So we couldn't do the extensive testing
Mhm.
to even drill down to find out what was more than what we could see or what the doctors initially diagnosed me with at the time. And so, miraculously, even while I was bedridden for those 70 days, all of that happened at home. I was not hospitalized. It actually happened while I was on a trip to Florida. And thankfully, and you'll hear me say these words even as this was happening, because this is why we have to look at what really happened to us and
Mhm.
not look at that, only that circumstance.
Mhm.
So thankfully, a hurricane was passing, and I was set to go home on the day I became paralyzed. So if that had happened to me on the cruise ship going home, which takes 18 hours to get home at that time, we don't know what else could have happened in that time. And so, with the hurricane passing, the boat did not travel. Now, mind you, I got up that morning with no issue, walking, got dressed to go home from a vacation. Okay, it was a birthday trip. What happened was, we went for breakfast. After breakfast, we drove around to do a few errands. And then we got to our arrival, which was my cousin's house where we stayed. They went into the house. I was left in the vehicle, the van, for more than 40 minutes. Could not talk, could not move, could not walk.
Wow.
That's how quickly it happened. But thankfully, it happened the way it happened. Now, when they realized I wasn't in the house, then they came and they came for me. And this was now the journey of the 70 days not being able to walk.
So you had really what we call an and suddenly,
And suddenly, definitely.
and I'm hearing you share that it was a disorder that had taken over your body and everything. And I can relate from an experience with my mother. Some years ago, my mother, uh, in 1989, as a matter of fact, she came down with a disease called Guillain-Barré. And with the Guillain-Barré, it started in her feet. Her feet started hurting. Then her legs started to hurt. And it was very difficult for her to walk. And when I took her to the one doctor, they could not find anything wrong. And it started getting worse and worse as days go by. And finally, I was recommended to go to a particular hospital here. And that's when they found out it was Guillain-Barré. When they found out, it had already gotten up to her neck. She could not move anything. She could only move her head. And as you say, her mouth, her eyes. She could not feed herself. We had to lift her up, put a belt around her waist, and lift her up out of the bed and get her to the restroom that way. She could not walk. Matter of fact, she couldn't raise herself up out of the bed. We had to lift her up in a sitting position. And so she stayed in a wheelchair for 6 months. They tried physical therapy, and physical therapy did not work. And so she stayed in a wheelchair for 6 months. And from the steroids and the other medicines that they were giving her, she slowly started to regain the muscle tone, started to build again. But they don't even know where this came from. It was just out of the blue, something attacked her body. And that's what it was.
It is so ironic that you say that because I am a person who I'm a seeker of knowledge. And
Yes.
so after all of this, and it didn't happen right away because remember now this is the mid 1990s, so the internet was not as engulfed with information as it is today or the last 10, 15 years. But about 7 to 10 years after I settled on Guillain-Barré syndrome, the same thing that you're talking about as being what had affected me during that time. And I had doctors after that saying it could have been that, but without having any type of historical data, blood work, or any kind of evidence of what happened other than verbal, we could never come to a conclusive um, answer. And so to hear you say that, and we've never had this conversation,
Right.
that was definitely the name of the syndrome that was the speculation that was a part of what happened to me. And
Oh,
so it is just so ironic that
right.
that you talk about that. So you, with you having that knowledge of what happened to your mom, it now gives you more of a insight and a glimpse of what I have shared with you on what happened to me and what that paralysis or what that entire situation felt like. And that's exactly what we landed on, the same syndrome that you
Right.
talk about with your mom.
And it's been, and I can totally understand when you said you felt helpless and hopeless, because if you can just imagine someone lying there and you just there, you can't move anything.
I couldn't
You
turn
can't.
over. I couldn't, it's nothing I could have done with for myself. And every muscle in my body atrophied. So it was as if I was just dead weight in the bed. And the thing about it at that time, I was so morbidly obese. That also complicated the entire situation. And so, yeah,
Wow, I totally, wow, my mind goes back, and I just seeing you here, I picture it because I know what that looks like. You know, when I would try to lift my mom's leg, it was like, it was just, uh, it's, you can't even
it's
describe.
indescribable, yes. But the thing about, and I don't know if you had that conversation with your mom, and I said it, it felt like cement. It was so heavy, and that's the reason why when anyone would try to lift you, it would just go back in the opposite direction because that's just how heavy your body felt. It is indescribable.
And that's what she said. She would say, my legs just feel so heavy. Just don't move them. They feel heavy. And her arms were the same way. It was like, even if you said, put your arms around me to lift her up, she couldn't put her arms around you. So I totally relate. But one thing that Dr. Perry and Oprah says in the book, they talked about shifting. So there has to be, when you go through such a traumatic experience, and like you said, you felt helpless, you felt hopeless, and when you get into that place of depression, that's a very lonely, dark place to be. And so, but you spoke earlier about a mirror. So somewhere, because of your bio, of course, but somewhere from the age of 21 to all of these amazing things that you accomplished, that there had to have been a shift. So you had to start seeing somewhere light at the end of the tunnel. Um, One of the things you said in your bio is that you're unstoppable. Um, you come from a place with a personal story of being vulnerable and authentic, and you recognize now that because of that miracle, and you use the term unrecognizable miracle that you try to help other people with. So you had that mind blowing miracle that happened.
Yes,
And that mind blowing miracle had to have been that shift.
yes.
Talk to me about the mind blowing miracle.
So you use the word you call a suddenly moment.
Mhm.
When I started to walk again, it was a suddenly moment. And it was a suddenly moment. And the irony around it is the morning of I was in the most pain I had ever been.
Mhm.
However, I was able to feel that pain from the top of my head to the soles of my feet. And it was as if every nerve in my body was on fire.
Mhm.
And that was the day that I was bellowing out in pain to the point that the neighbors heard me and they were concerned. I was in so much pain, but it was also the morning that my mom's sister's husband passed away.
Mhm.
And in that moment, I realized how I was not truly being grateful for life, even in my circumstance.
Mhm.
Because in all those days, I was begging God to take me. He didn't. And my uncle, who was my aunt's husband, was taken suddenly.
Mhm.
And that's when it came full circle with me. And later that day, not later that day, a few days later, so I don't really have a concept of time because I didn't have, a watch, a calendar, but it was a few days later. So each day I was still feeling like I was electrified, that so much pain was in my body. I was starting to feel again. And I just decided to put one foot in front of the next. I don't know how my feet just fell out the bed. And I started to walk. Now, I wasn't walking where I was lifting up my foot or lifting up each feet. It was like a push forward. It was a push. It
Mhm.
was a push. And I
Mhm.
was forcing one foot in front of the next and forcing the next foot and forcing the next foot until I got into my front room. And I realized, and my mom and my aunt was in the house, and they looked back at me as if they had seen a ghost. And I got back up and I went back in the room the same way I came, forcing one foot in front of the next, forcing one foot in front of the next, never having physical therapy, never having anything more than just morphine that was keeping me and a steroid that was keeping me, and never having more than, which was the biggest thing that I think contributed to my miracle. My family prayed around my bedside every night. And so, as I would start to think about these things, even in my deepest depression, I realized that there was more to what was happening to me. And I now needed to accept it so that God could reveal to me what this thing was and why it happened to me. And that's why I call it a miracle. And that's why I say vulnerability, because what I did was I shifted my depression into vulnerability and saying to God, show me what this thing is. Why is this happening to me? And what do you want of me in this moment?
What
Uh,
was your what was your revelation?
my revelation was my revelation was that it wasn't my time. And the biggest revelation was all of the checklists that I had to meet by the time I was 21 was not what was important anymore. And so this is where the shift happened. And I was able to now say, to be the vessel, I should say, of what God wanted me to be. And it was a great shift because I literally just laid down every expectation, every focus that I ever had for myself, everything that family thought I should be or what I should accomplish. And I just put that on the side. And I just said, God, free me from every everything I thought I should be and give me the freedom to walk into what you want me to be. That was my shift. And I can tell you within days, maybe, of me mentally having that shift, I began to walk again. And that's why I call it an unstoppable miracle, unrecognizable miracle, because nothing adds up if you look at it from the physical realm. Nothing
So
adds up.
when you think about that traumatic experience entering the age of 21 up to that miracle moment, on this side of all of that, do you now have a philosophy of life?
I definitely have a philosophy of on life. Definitely have a philosophy. Most persons who know me know that one of my guiding core values or words is intentional. Now, let me start with my guiding quote or scripture, which is, be still and know that I am God. And that's Psalms 46 and 10. But if you go further in that verse, it also talks about being exalted, Him being exalted. And so that is my philosophy, that when we sit in the stillness of whatever is going on in our life, and the irony of it is, when I was bedridden, I literally was in stillness. And so even now, in what I live and the joy that I experience on the other side of this trauma or the traumatic experience, my philosophy is always to be still in everything. Don't allow what's going on the outside to direct your path. You have to be very intentional, very non negotiable about certain things. And those are two key philosophies that I hold on to, being very authentic to who you are. And because when I dissect my life from a child to 21, it was always just fitting into a box, to be at the top of your class, to be the best in everything you do, to always show up regardless, and not to think about anything else that can deter you from that. And my overall thought about why I also became so broken health wise is because my spirit was broken.
Mm. When did you realize that you had a broken spirit?
I was tired. When did I realize I had a broken spirit?
Hmm.
And I was flat on my back.
Yeah.
I realized I had a broken spirit. I realized that I kept a lot of things in. I didn't express myself because obviously we come from a culture where strong for a Black woman looks like not telling exactly what's going on, and that you need time to rest, and that you need time to step away, and that you don't always have to be first in everything, even though you may be first most times, or you don't always have to be the best as the system shows it, even though you show up as the best. Coming from a Caribbean culture, especially in my country, and at that time in the educational system, I was always number one. And as you progress in grade level, obviously, um, the education gets harder. However, you were expected to continue on that trajectory. And I think all of that um, contributed to my brokenness, because of this expectation that I became very tired of, but there was no um, outlet for me to be tired, because even in that situation, coming from a single mom who worked so hard to ensure that her two children had the private school education and the best that she could provide,
Mhm.
obviously, what was I expected to do but to show up? And so,
So always having that yearning to succeed and be at the top and be the success that you were. And when you became paralyzed and when you start to walk again, um, and you get back to um, good health, how old were you when you were able to see yourself in a healthy state again?
so I wish I could tell you that I didn't get ill again. In January of 2013, I was unable to walk again.
Wow.
And however, at that point, I was in a different position from a emotional standpoint, a mental standpoint, a physical standpoint, a financial standpoint. And so I have not truly 100% wholly healed myself.
Mhm.
However, I am I was brought from a place of that state in 1996 to where I was able to thrive and really embody wellness and be very intentional about my health from 1996. So when I wasn't able to walk again in 2013, that situation was a result of negligence at a local hospital. However, I had the tools now because my health was in a different space, as I said. Emotionally, I was in a different space. And financially, I was in a different space. I was able to be airlifted to Cleveland Clinic in Florida, where
Mhm.
I was able to get the best health care there was for myself. And so I don't believe that there was a exact point where there was a shift with my health
Mhm.
because every day I am choosing wellness.
Exactly.
Because as we know, once we're diagnosed with certain diseases, diseases take tolls on our body that there's no coming back from. So something like a rheumatoid arthritis that I have where the disease attacks the joints. I don't have any joints. However, I have never had a joint replacement surgery.
Wow.
And this is why I call myself an unstoppable miracle
Yes.
because every day I am a walking miracle because doctors told me that by the time I was 23, I would be crippled, unable to walk again at all for the rest of my life. And at 25, I would be dead. And I am now 45. So
Wow.
I've defied the odds of everything that has been said. And this is the reason I use the adjectives I use, not because it sounds good, but because this is the reality of my circumstances. This is the reality of my life. This is who I am. And I believe that's who I am. And I am constantly reminding myself that shift is a choice every day for me mentally. And that's the reason why my language is the way my language is by using those types of words, because that is what keeps me every day.
What do you
Because
feel has changed about you most of your life?
what has changed,
Well, let me put it to you this way. What has stayed the same about you?
I don't think anything has stayed the same about me other than that's a very hard question because I have classmates who say to me that you are the same person that I remember. And so obviously there were some great characteristics that I displayed as a child growing up and into adulthood. But when I look at myself, I believe that nothing about me is truly the same because I have disrupted my mindset to the point that, see, many people didn't know what was going on in my mind at that time. Because as I said, you just didn't talk about those things. And now what leads me and what guides me is to be very true to who I am and to ensure that my mindset and my mental state is my is the number one thing of importance for me. So the one thing that has definitely shifted with me is I am very intentional about the words that come out of my mouth, what I speak to myself, and what I speak to others. I'm very intentional about that. That is the one thing that I can say that this experience, this shift has the gift it has given me. that what I have to say, if it doesn't give life, then it needs not to be said at all.
I think
I
one of the
have,
things about you, though,
pardon?
I think one of the things about you, though, that has not changed is your intentionality. And I think that you have learned to position it in a different place.
Ah,
You were intentional in high school and grade school to be the top, to be the best, to be the all A. Now, because of your shift in your thinking, your mindset, the way you process your thoughts and your perception of what has happened to you, you now shift that intentionality to another place, to a different area. Now I'm intentional about my health. I'm intentional about what I say to people. I'm intentional about what comes out of my mouth. I'm intentional about the things that I do for myself. So I think intentionality is one thing that has always been a part of your makeup. It's just that, where do I position this now?
yes, yeah.
What is the best advice you would give for the living?
The best advice I would give for the living
Mm-hmm.
is to live, to inhale all of the good things that is for your life, for you, not what others expect of you, not your spouse, not your children, not your family, not your just persons you encounter, but to truly embody the life that God has purposed for you. We think that's a cliche. It's not. Purpose doesn't have to be some grand something that you now know life is for you, but understanding that you can be gentle in your daily living, understand that your life is a reflection of how you truly feel on the inside, and also know that we need to release everything that does not serve us. We like to hold on. There are even some good things that happen to us that we hold on to that we have to let go, because you cannot continue moving forward. You cannot continue with having momentum if you keep holding on or reaching back or staying still in the last best thing that happened to you.
When you say you have to learn to let go, it sort of lead into another question for me to you, and that is, so often people will say, especially clients that I serve, they will say, I don't know any other way. I don't know. You keep telling me to live my best life. I don't know how to live my best life. How would you guide or tell somebody? What would you knowledge, wisdom you would provide a person that's trying to seek their best life?
So if someone continues to say they don't know how to live their best life, if we understand that if you don't let it go, you keep repeating the same thing over and over again. So we don't have to know what best life looks like, but we do know, and we have to acknowledge and be honest about what we're living now and realize that it's not serving us. And even in taking that weight and just putting it down, when you now have a release of whatever that weight is, that looks different. That doesn't have to be your best life, but it's no longer your old life. And what we have to understand is everything is a process. Nothing is just, I go from one of not knowing to one of knowing all. Life as we know it is a journey. And so for someone who is saying, I don't know how to, don't worry about the how, but let go of the what that is holding you back. And I guarantee you, when you let go of that what, the how evolves. But when we keep holding on to that old what, we just keep revolving and repeating the same thing over and over and over again.
You know, as I hear you say that, when I'm working with my clients, one of the exercises that I have them do is um, complete an exercise on what needs to change in my life. Because if we're not doing what the things that we want to do, if we're not living the life we want to live, that means that something needs to change. And until we, like you said, the what, until we identify the what, and until we start to work on those things that we hold on to that's holding us back, then we continue to stay in the same place, and it just we stay on the rodeo ride, right? And so we have to learn how to make these changes in our life in order to live that fulfilled life. We all want to live a fulfilled life, but so many don't want to do the work that it takes to get to that fulfilled life. When I looked at your bio, and I want to take a little shift just a little bit, because I think it's phenomenal, and I think it's important that we do take a look at your successes after all what happened to you. And still, as recent as 2013, you were, you became ill once again. But Caline, you've done so many amazing things, right? When we look at success, I want you to share with us. I know you don't have children, but you wrote a book. You have 14 godchildren. And you indicated to me that each chapter of that book was a character that portrayed one of your godchildren. I want you to tell us about the book and just kind of tell us a few of your successes, because you have a whole laundry list of all the success. So kind of touch on that for me.
Yes, so I am still blown away by a lot of my successes. And not until I have to write them down and put them together that I realize, you know, all of the blessings and the successes that have happened in my life since 1996. But to go first to the question in reference to my godchildren, so more specifically, I published a children's literacy book in May of this year. And no, I don't have any children, but I am of the belief that we are all living legacies. Even if we don't have children that come through us, we can still ensure that our legacy, that our imprint is left with whomever we have in our care. And so I have 14 godchildren who I am in their lives. And the book that I wrote, every character in the book is their real name. So I dedicated the book to them, and the names that I used in the story are my godchildren's name. And beyond that, what I am going to do too with the series of books that I am going to continue to write that include my godchildren, the royalties from the book will go to my godchildren. So I am a passionate teacher of financial literacy, and it goes beyond having the educational accolades of being an accountant and a personal business and finance strategist, a certified financial crime specialist, certified fraud examiner, and the list goes on, and that's a part of my bio. But beyond that, with my experiences and understanding where my mom was in the place of 1996 and where I was in the place of 2013, and my journey on my own financial um, um, independence and enjoyment and freedom, I want to also impart that at an age where it's determined. So there's a study that says by the time children are 7 years old, their emotions and their experiences around money have already been developed. And so those at 7 now take that into their adult years. And we know that in order for us to have wealth, in order for us to have intergenerational wealth, in order for us to now close the wealth gap, which is also a passion of mine, this
Yeah.
is why financial literacy is the tool that I use to ensure that others are impacted and influenced so that they can now amplify legacy for their families. And so we have to always start with ourselves. So definitely, I started with my godchildren. I've always taught them financial literacy. I've always taught financial literacy to students and women and couples for 20 years. And so it's just translating it now into something that's tangible that others can take with them into their families, into their with their children, into their communities, and just amplify the message of wealth, as I said, and abundance.
I heard you mention several times your mom. Um, what is your most treasured or your most cherished family tradition?
Wow, there's so many. So let what is such a treasured
Or
family tradition for
or what you cherished most about family traditions? Share as many as you like.
birthdays. And so it all from I was a child, my mom, even if it was just a cake, we always paused to celebrate a birthday. Nothing elaborate, but the point of it was to have that camaraderie with family. And that is a treasured tradition in our family. Even if it's just for 30 minutes to pass by each household, just to physically and in person say happy birthday, to embrace each other and to break bread. And especially for me and my experience after my 21st birthday, I celebrate my birthday every year in that continued tradition. And I do it with my mother also. Now, what some persons may not know is my mom is 74 and I am her primary caregiver. She now has moderate to severe dementia.
Oh wow.
And so I am truly thankful that I am now in the position to give the care to my mother, who gave me that indescribable care when I was unable to, both in 1996 and 2013, just throughout my life as being her daughter. And so another tradition that she loved is Christmas. And it has nothing to do with gifts. It goes back to coming together with family. So, one of the biggest traditions that I lean into in our family is to celebrate each other. And that's what I get from the birthday celebrations and the Christmas celebrations and the Easter gatherings is that we pause to celebrate each other, to be in each other's physical presence so that we can understand that life is all about living and embracing each other as we move through life. And so those are some of the traditions that I hold on to. My mother, I am so thankful. She has given me so many traditions and so many strategies that I also now hold on to and I live by that now leads me as I move forward in my life. And so those are the things that I could say in this moment that I really truly enjoy.
realizing that you had some setbacks and you have had successes, you've had some challenges. Do you think a person needs to first overcome serious setbacks or challenges to be successful?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that this walk or this journey is an either or, because, as I said, even while I was still bedridden, I embraced a success with a shift in my mindset. And so I believe that we have to, and that is the reason why many stay stuck, because they're looking for perfectionism. And we have to understand that you can have a duality of setbacks and successes, but it's how you approach it and how you embrace it. And so, with every success, celebrate it. With every setback, you need to now peel back the layers of what is the meaning behind the setback?
Mhm.
What did I contribute to the setback? Because sometimes we prefer to be a victim in a setback instead of doing a 360 analysis and say, how did I contribute to this? And how do I now shift the way I move forward from this? So I don't believe that it's an either or. I don't live that way. And it may sound very unorthodox, but I believe that most persons do the either or, specifically if they're focusing on perfectionism. And we have to understand that we are imperfect beings, and life, there's so many things that happen as we move day to day. And we just have to get rid of the noise and focus on what is good out of whatever happens, whether it's a setback or a success.
If you had the power to solve one and only one problem in the world, what would it be?
Wow. If I had the opportunity to solve one problem and only one problem in the world, what would that be? You know what that would be?
What's
That
that?
every individual, every human being that's on the face of this earth would love themselves 100%, to
Mm.
love themselves fully, to embrace self love. And the reason why I say that is because if we truly celebrated and embraced and loved ourselves wholly, we would then be able to walk out our life in a different way. Our perspective would be different. The way we engage others would be from a point of love. The way that we engage ourselves would be from a point of love. And the way that countries and communities would engage each other would be from a point of love. And so that would be the one thing that I would want to have the power to solve, because I can tell you that my successes have happened, and embracing my setbacks and being able to still be an unstoppable walking miracle is because I have truly accepted myself from a place of love.
Oh, wow. That is just beautiful. That is just amazing. Every week I always ask one fun question. Um, and so tonight I want to ask you the one fun question. And just to see if there's a humor side, right? Knowing that you're very intentional in all other areas, but let's just see if there is one fun side, the beautiful smile, and let's see if there's a fun side on the other side of the beautiful smile. Um, what is something I would never guess about you?
Something you would never guess about me is that when I was in high school, My brother and I, we were a rap beatbox duo.
Oh, wow.
And so, yes, there is a side of me that a lot of people don't know, but there's a side of me that a lot of my family and very close friends know. I love music and well, I do the spoken word, but when I was much younger, I rap. Now, don't put me on the spot, Dr.
Wow. See,
Don't do
the
it.
only reason I'm not going to put you on the spot is because your brother is not here. If your brother was here, then I would put you on the spot.
I think
I
I can
can,
still do
wow.
the little bit of the beatbox, but some of my lipstick may come off, but I don't have. Let me see if I can do it.
Please, and please, we need that tonight. We need that tonight. Oh, wow. I heard it. Oh my gosh. You just set the tone for when women heal.
So one thing I love fun, and as I tell you, don't mind if I'm not a person. Everything I say, I live. I don't believe in perfectionism. I believe in
Yes.
being vulnerable and authentic and transparent, and that's who I am.
Wow, I love it. I love it. So, Kelly, let me ask you a question. What is something that you have not shared that's in your heart that you may want to share, not only with our community, but just with the world? What would you want to share?
Boy, Dr. G, you really put it on me today. You had me. That last question was hard. So, what do I want to share with the world? The one thing that I would want to share is that each of us has a very unique gift that God specifically put in us to light up this world. And we have to become very fearless when it comes to sharing that light with the world. And one thing that I am is very fearless about just letting people see my light because sometimes others just need a glimmer of hope, just need that reflection from someone else to give them their light so that they can now move on the path of where they need to go. So, what I want the world to know is share your light ruthlessly,
Wow.
fearlessly, wonderfully, because there is somebody else that's out there that needs your light in order for their light to shine.
Wow. Wow. It's just time. It's the season. And this is the moment that we all step up and step out, move beyond the box, and start being everything that God called you to be. He calls you, He equips you. And so it's time for us once again. And I just want to piggyback on it. And I don't think we can say it enough, is to be the shining light. Learn to be the bright light and be intentional about letting your light shine. It's just, I'm so grateful. It's just the thought of knowing that you can come from a place of pain, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional, and walk into your newness, walk into the light to live the life that God truly, truly has purposed you to live. And Caline, I thank you so much for joining me tonight. Ladies, I invite you all to join the When Women Heal community. As we said earlier, it's that community where women come together, they heal, they grow, and of course, they become empowered. Go to the Facebook community and join When Women Heal. Also, go visit our website at whenwomenheal.com. We will see you all again next week with another amazing guest. So join us and you will see who that is. But we want to thank Caline once again for her authenticity, being so transparent, and we praise God for her healing. Just continue to do all the marvelous work that you're doing. Okay.
Thank
Good
you.
night, and we will see you soon. Have a great week. Be blessed.